I don't really understand what everyone's so upset about. The Olympics suck. Who watches the Olympics? Who watched in 2010 when Crosby scored that overtime goal? Definitely not millions of people. Who watched 4 years ago when Canada, went on to win the gold medal again? It wasn't me. I sure as hell wasn't watching. Just kidding. Screw you, Gary Bettman. Hey, we forgot one. Hello and welcome to Post to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey and all teams. This is by far the most depressing episode that we've made so far on this channel, and in protest to the NHL, to Gary Bettman, we have turned all of the hats around. So, news broke hours ago that the NHL will not be allowing players to play in the Olympics. This is huge. This is huge news, and the majority of people are really, really, really upset about it, and social media is just exploding right now. There's comments going left and right from the people in the States, people in Europe, people in Canada. There's a lot of upset hockey fans, and I'm one of them. So we're going to discuss it, and I'm lucky enough to have a few different people here with me. Like Jason, thank you for joining me today. Mm-hmm. And my dad made a video for me. He filmed a video, so I'm going to show that. And then Justin, who's usually on the channel with me, he couldn't make it, but he gave me a few words to read on his behalf. So we're actually going to start with that. I'm going to read what Justin has to say. I'm going to go to my dad, see what he has to say, and then Jason's going to chime in, and then I'll give my final thoughts on the situation. So here's what Justin has to say. Money. It all comes down to money. It's a true shame as the owners look at the players as a herd of cattle that are raised for slaughter. Or in other words, they milk the players from draft day until retirement. Travel costs, insurances, everything was covered. So what the hell was the problem? Simple. The NHL has to shut down the season for 2 weeks. During that time, revenue slows down. It forces them to condense the season, which comes at a cost. These owners want a constant cash flow and minimal expenses. Bettman is not a player's commissioner, he is an owner's commissioner. He doesn't decide something like this on his own. He is the puppet for the ownership groups, and he has been the commissioner for so long as he is their loyal servant. Most guys would be loyal too if they were being paid over $7 million a year. They are putting NHL games overseas this fall in China to grow the NHL brand. Fair enough. But what better way to build the brand than to allow the top talent from the league to perform on an international stage to represent their country? It's a shame, as Olympic hockey is magical, not only for the fans but as the players as well. But the greediness of the 31 ownership group in this NHL has the final say, and their say is money first. So pretty strong words from Justin there. It's not hard to tell which side that he is on, and that sounds like a classic fan right now in this moment, a classic hockey fan, really, really upset. Justin really wants to see the players in the Olympics. Like I said in my funny little intro there at the beginning, the moment that Crosby scored the overtime goal in 2010 against the United States was one of the best hockey memories I personally have, and there was tens of millions of Canadians alone watching that, let alone everyone else in the world. So I can't imagine the missed opportunities, the missed memories that we'll be having in 2018 without the NHL players. So now let's go to the other side of the spectrum, where my dad, he's obviously older. He's not really, or to him, the NHL players in the Olympics are kind of a new thing. So let's see what he has to say.
Hi, everybody. The announcement just came out. The NHL is not going to go to the Olympics. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I read Justin's tweet earlier today, and I know he's incensed. His hair is on fire that Gary Bettman and the rest of the NHL has decided that they're done negotiating with the Players Association and the IOC and the World Ice Hockey Federation, IIHF or whatever, and the NHL is just not going to play in the Olympics. I'm fine. I'm just totally fine with that, because in those 4-year periods, whenever we used to go to the Olympics, the league would shut down for a couple of weeks. There'd be a few days off ahead of time to travel halfway around the world, a few days on the other end. Essentially, hockey is interrupted right in the middle of the season. And I don't like that. It disrupts teams, not unlike the 5-day break that we've seen every team get in the NHL this year. I don't know if there's more than a handful of teams that came off of that 5-day break better than they were when they went on the 5-day break. The Olympic break would be even worse, I think, for a lot of those teams. And look, let's just leave things alone. I'm an old-fashioned Olympic follower where athletes had to be, essentially amateurs in order to participate. I think the call in the Olympics at the end of the closing ceremonies is, we call the youth of the world to come back together again, in 4 years' time and meet us in Sarajevo or meet us in Sochi. Well, a 38-year-old multimillionaire is not a member of the youth of the world, and I don't really think it fits with the Olympics. I don't think it ever did. I'm happy that the experiment appears to be ending, at least for this time, and I'm at peace with that. We're going to have a regular NHL season that runs without breaks, and it's going to be fantastic. And we can watch the Olympics in the middle of the night if you want to, and who knows, maybe Canada will do well. You never know. There's players from all over the world in the NHL, all countries all over the world who have NHL players will not have those players available for their hockey teams. So it may still be a fairly level playing field. The KHL players will dominate. There's a few Canadians in the KHL, who knows. Anyway, I'm cool with it. Thank you for not disrupting my 2017-2018 hockey season.
So, some other strong words, again, from my father. He's very passionate about his stance on this situation, and he kind of has the opposite stance of Justin. So, two opinions that are, neither are wrong. They're just opinions. They're that. This is a whole discussion between everyone, not just between us, but between you guys in the comments. Nobody's wrong here. Everyone has their own opinion, and that's really what's great about this entire thing. So my dad feels one way on this side. Justin kind of feels the other way on this side. And now I'm going to go to you, Jason. How do you feel? And this is kind of a topic kind of right up your alley, because you're more so of a business fan of the sport rather than a kind of like a player. So
I would consider myself right down that middle. I'm going to say, first of all, the people in the comments who are watching this video, go easy on Neil's dad. I like Neil's dad. He's a very nice guy. We don't need to get hostile. I imagine most of you are going to have the opinion that Justin has. So let's just calm before we write. Okay, so as Neil said, and as we've seen in this video, the news is out. They're not going. So the IOC is basically the one I consider to be at fault here. Everyone's going to want to blame the NHL. Everyone's going to want to blame Gary Bettman. Everyone's going to want to blame the owners. Mm-hmm. I'm blaming the IOC because the IOC makes an incredible amount of money off of the Olympics games. Usually the host city, they lose money. So every 4 years, the city is awarded the game. It does a lot of things for the small business and stuff, but usually the city itself loses money, and the IOC rakes it in big time, but they don't like to give it back.
Okay.
So the NHL was asking for a small piece of the pie in order to send their players, which is what happened last time in 2014 with Sochi. The IOC agreed to pay the travel and the insurance for the players, and that was what got them there. They said they're not going to do it in 2018, which is where this all began. So, long story short, eventually the IIHF came forth saying that we will pay the insurance and the travel expenses for your players. But the NHL turned that down because the IIHF's kind of mandate is to grow hockey internationally. That's where the pool of players from the smaller team or the smaller countries comes, and then hopefully it ends up in the NHL someday. And the owners also are owners. They're rich guys that own the teams. They know the IOC is also rich, and they want them being rich guys. They want other rich guys giving them their share of their dues because it's their players that are putting their risk for injuries and blah, blah, blah. So I don't fault the owners for that. Like, I understand from a business perspective why they're like that. And a lot of fans don't consider the business side of things when they're looking at this. They just say, this is my team, this is my players, I like to see this, this is what's fun. But that's not really the big picture. That's not what this is about. This is a business. The players know it's a business. That's why they go for as much money as they can usually. If the players didn't treat it like a business and they wanted to win and they wanted to be just like the fans, they'd be taking less money so that their team could be better wholly, and then their team would have bigger chances of winning. But most players don't do that. Some will take a little bit of a hometown discount, but for the most part, they don't. They try to max out where they can, and then the teams do what they reshuffle as they have to.
Right.
It's a business. It's a corporation versus a union. It's just any other corporate union. It's the same.
Exactly.
It's the same partnership. So I just want to go a little bit with the timeline of how things went. So when they said that the IIHF offered to pay the stuff for them, they said no. Then the NHL did a couple other things to try to make things worse. First, they offered the Players Association to, if they guaranteed they would not opt out of the current CBA,
Right.
then they would go, and that would last to 2022. The union obviously turned that down. They said that our right to play in Olympics should not be mandated based on whether, we extend our contract or not. And I totally agree with that. That's right. That was a cheap tactic that the owners tried to use. So then they tried to have the IOC buy a home game or two from each team in the league, so that would kind of make up for some lost cash, which I don't know if I agree with lost cash or not. The games are still going to be played.
Exactly.
The merchandise is still going to be bought. Yes, you do have a 2-week gap where you're not watching hockey, and when it's overseas like that, it does kind of affect things from a viewer perspective. But the money is still going to be made. The real problem is the condensing of the schedule and then risk of injury of players.
Right.
So when it comes to money, the money I see as injury to players and not really as anything else, because the money's coming, the games are coming, and whatever. So the next thing they did was they tried to become a sponsor / supplier for the TV side of things in the thing. Because right now, like for example, that goal that Crosby scored in 2010, the NHL does not have the right to play that video. It was some of the greatest players playing against each other, Canada, USA, all NHL players. They do not have the right to show pictures, videos. Nobody does. It's controlled by the IOC, and they have the rights to it. That's why you don't see that anywhere.
I didn't know that.
So the NHL says they can't market their brand with that great moment because they don't have the rights to it. So here they tried to get some of the rights, and I agree with that. And then they could attach the Olympic rings logo to their NHL shield, and then the IOC turned them down. And then they also tried. Yeah, so then they tried to just say, well, give us some money and let us maybe air the way we want with our broadcasters, and the IOC also turned that down. So the IOC is being completely uncooperative here, and I don't know. I really would like to see the players go, because for my generation, that's kind of what we grew up with. It's the best players in the league on the best teams. It is the best hockey you will see. It's like taking the 30 NHL teams and condensing it down, and you're just like, your fourth line is like the top line of other teams.
Of a normal NHL team.
Absolutely. Yeah. So of course you want to see that, and I don't know. It's just really unfortunate the way it all kind of panned out. And
it is.
For me personally, I put the blame on the IOC 80%. I put the rest on the NHL for kind of. We knew this was coming when the World Cup was announced. I'm not surprised that this happened the way it did just by following it, but I know there's a lot of disappointed people today.
Yeah, I think the World Cup was kind of meant to be the replacement for the Olympics, because I think a lot of people predicted this, and they knew that this could happen, and today is the day it happened. And there was some interesting facts. I didn't actually know some of that, but everybody kind of loses here. The Olympic Committee loses because they're losing a huge. The hockey's still going to be there, but essentially they're losing a lot of viewership, because I'm still going to watch even at 3 in the morning. But the average hockey fan, is the average hockey fan going to watch some non-NHL players in the middle of the night? Probably not. So it's tough for the Olympics, because they're going to lose a lot of views or a lot of exposure. It's tough for the fans of hockey, because they're not going to see their favorite players in the Olympics. And it's just going to be a really weird situation. Like you said, our generation kind of grew up watching NHL players in the Olympics. And then the NHL loses because, they have fans that are pissed off. And then they have, I'm not going to say that they're going to lose money by not going to the Olympics, but yeah, you're right when you say it's a business. So, it's unfortunate for kind of everyone. And I hope that it kind of blows over quicker than normal, and this doesn't drag on and stuff, because like the NHL made the announcement today for the very reason that the playoffs are coming up, and I don't want this overshadowing any playoff talk. They just want to settle this now and get on with the playoffs. So I do agree with that decision to release the statement today and make a decision today. Even though I don't agree with the decision, I'm glad they did it today before the playoffs, and we can all just get over this hopefully and just move on with the playoffs.
Two interesting things that will be interesting to follow from this will be, I believe, I don't know this for sure, but I believe that the hockey was one of the, if not the most watched things during the Winter Olympics, and figure skating would probably be either second or first. They're probably pretty close. So it will be interesting to see if the IOC takes a hit from not having as competitive hockey there. And also in Gary Bettman's release today, he also mentioned that the IOC put in a thing saying that if they wanted to play in 2022 in China, that they had to go to 2018, which they're not. So it's kind of interesting that they're building that relationship with China, which was announced last week with the preseason game. And now they're not going to be, according to the IOC, allowed to go to 2022 China because they're not going in 2018 now.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a business, and it's unfortunate that, there's all these different scenarios that could take place, and if we don't see an NHL players, well, we're not going to see, unless it changes miraculously somehow, we're not going to see NHL players in the 2018 Olympics. And like you just said, we could potentially not see any NHL players in the 2022 Olympics. Where is that Beijing? Or
it's in Beijing, yeah. And some owners have said that they are going to let their players go. Like Washington said, he's not going to stand in front of Ovechkin's way, where you get Eugene Melnyk from the Senators saying that Karlsson will not be going. So we'll see how this kind of unfolds.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll just use the Melnyk situation. Karlsson wants to play in the Olympics. Melnyk does not want Karlsson to play in the Olympics. Understandably, I really do understand the owner's perspective on this, because they don't want their player to get injured. If Karlsson gets injured, that affects Ottawa's position at making a Stanley Cup run. That's unfortunate. Nobody wants that. But, that's just a risk. That's just part of the risk. So I understand both sides of this situation. And I just want to check my notes here real quick. So, for example, if Karlsson decides to go, or if he just says, you know what, Melnyk, I'm going regardless of what you say, there's going to be consequences. There could be within organization suspension of Karlsson. He could be fined by the team. He could be in breach of his contract, and he may even be traded just because, Melnyk could just go say, hey, you know what, trade this guy. He's useless to me because he doesn't listen, and he's not part of what we believe here in Ottawa, so trade him. And do you think the Ottawa fans would be very happy about that? I don't think so. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these different teams handle this. I think the owner of the Detroit Red Wings said that he would be okay with his players going. I'm not 100% on that, but there's a lot of teams that feel a different way. So it's going to be interesting to see which players go and which players don't. So it's, this is an unfortunate situation, like I said. And my personal opinion on this is, I think there was a comment made by Bettman where he says, well, they're going to lose millions to try and keep hockey in Arizona, but they don't want hockey in the biggest and broadest market in the world, which is the Olympics, and they expect us to believe that they're trying to grow the game globally. So give me a break. I can't remember who said that. It wasn't Bettman, obviously, but it was some analyst who said that. So I agree with that. If they want us to see them growing the game globally, but they're not making, even if they have to lose money, it's a gain, in my opinion, when you get that viewership back from those other markets. So I don't know. I'm kind of maybe a little more towards Justin than you, and you're maybe a little towards my dad. You're maybe right on the fence. But...
No, I'm make no bones about this. I want them there.
Right.
But I am not as much of a fan as Justin is, and the definition of a fan is a fanatic, and right. you are your team, your players, your whatever. I'm just taking a step back, and I'm looking at the situation, and I understand the business side of it.
Right.
So just because I say I understand the business side of things does not mean I am against it. I am 110% for it. I am extremely disappointed they are not going, but I understand why they're not, and I've seen it coming. So
you're kind of right in the middle, like you said. So if my dad's over here, and Jason's here, and Justin's here, I'm kind of right in the middle between Justin and Jason. I'm more towards Justin, I guess. So, it's, like I said, it's an unfortunate situation, and I think you and I and Justin and my dad are really curious to know how you guys feel. And, the majority of people on social media are very upset, but we want to know what you guys think. So we hope that we leave I hope that you leave your opinions down in the comments below, because we're really interested in to going through them and reading them, and just interacting with you guys some more. If this is your first video on Post to Post, we really appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe button. We're making videos like this almost on a daily basis. So, and if you like the video, man, throw a thumbs up on it too. We appreciate that, and that goes a long way. Jason, thank you much for joining me here today.
No problem.
And
Sorry, Justin, you couldn't be here, but
yeah, sorry,
you're
Justin.
in spirit.
You're in spirit. And thanks to my dad for sending me that clip. And yeah, just thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Adios.